there's a lot of people out there who want to develop their land.
We were losing jobs by like less than 10K.
On $2 million jobs.
Right.
And I was getting home late, having had to price. And Emily's like, well, did you win the job? Oh, no. Well, what's the point of this? I'm missing my kids growing up for this. Something's got to change.
It was quite a rude awakening to our life together.
A lot of our clients are mum and dad own their land and have for a while, so they've got equity in the land. They subdivide it, sell one, and live in a new house. So they've sort of paid off a new house.
Big thanks, guys, for making time for this. Your dad's name was
Graham, yeah.
Right. Okay. And you did your trade under him?
Yeah, I did. I've got a bit of a different. I've got a non-linear sort of introduction to the industry. So through him, I got no school holiday where I sat on the couch. I was always on a wheelbarrow or on site. And then I had a bit of like when I left school, I got drafted into the AFL. So I went and followed that path.
What was that like?
So basically I followed a professional sport path out of school, straight out of school. And the only reason I say that is because it's sort of, if I didn't, I would have just gone and got my carpentry apprenticeship. So I sort of had a bit of a different, so I'm actually not a qualified carpenter as such. So I've got a bit of a different introduction to the whole thing.
Epic. Well, okay, so, but as a kid, you were still exposed to...
It's what my life was, yeah. It really was I was probably always going to end up here. Just how I got there was like that, not like that.
Yeah.
Which I think it has its benefits as opposed to have just been in it from 18 years of age, which most probably are. But I knew what the construction site was all about. So I sort of got a bit of both.
Did you enjoy that early exposure as a kid, getting taken to site, as you said, given a wheelbarrow to push?
Sometimes I was like reluctant to go and do it. I'd just say, Dad, can you just give me can I have a bit of a rest?
Yeah.
But he was a hard worker. So I learnt everything in that aspect off him. So I sort of...
In terms of hard work and diligence.
Yeah. So go and push the wheelbarrow. Probably, okay.
Now?
I'm grateful now. Probably, like, it's not like I hated it at the time, but it was a bit of a resentment of just give me a break.
Yeah.
But it taught me really good values.
Yeah. And early on, Emily, as a kid, were you exposed at all to construction?
My dad was a Greek immigrant to Australia, came out as a teenager, couldn't speak a word of English, tried to go to school, wasn't very successful. His dad made him do a mechanics apprenticeship. He hated that, dropped out, then did an electrical apprenticeship and became an electrician. And then back in his day, to get a builder's license, you just walked into MBAV and said, I want to become a builder. So signed away and became a builder. So I grew up with a building father as well. So he built our childhood home and I was always sort of surrounded. I didn't get asked to go onto the site to the wheelbarrows. My brother did.
Okay, I was gonna, I know about that. I have a sister as well.
Yeah.
It's just like, Janae's there too. Yeah. Dad, you can ask Janae. No. But now having girls, I understand. Not princess. I don't want to raise them as princesses, but they are my princesses.
Yeah. But we got 3 girls too.
Yeah.
Or not 2. We've got 3 girls.
Book to come out.
So it is interesting for me because of that father-son and that's, what is expected and whatever.
And to be fair, he does bring them to the factory and make them help him clean.
And I bring them there because, there's a balance. I'm not going to force them to do it like perhaps I was forced to do. But I'm certainly going to be supportive of, I hope, one day they take over the business. But I've also got this thing in the back of my mind that says, who would push their kids into this industry? And I say
it's
that
quite different these days,
half jokingly. But I'd love, I'd love them to be 3rd generation. Yeah. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But we'd like to set it up so it can happen, I suppose is.
And that's cool to hear. If we go back a generation, when you were young, seeing your dad work hard, was it appealing? Did you think one day, you thought maybe one day I'll get into the construction space, but did you think one day I'd like to be running a company or this company? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's just what I learned as a kid with my mum and dad. Mum was really strong and looked after us all. My dad just went to work and work was everything to him. It was his life. And I think I just saw that and I learnt it. But I also learnt that to do it, you would need hard work, commitment, passion. So I think I just saw it really early on. Okay. And I think that's sort of, I think I almost don't know any different, to be honest.
And that was a different generation too. My dad was the same as Graham. They were gone in the morning before you get up, and they'd get home, they were tired, they're grumpy, they wouldn't, there wasn't really a connection with family in that era. So, you sort of grew up without a dad. And I think something that Mark's been very conscious of doing is not repeating that cycle.
Yeah, I'm interested, has that been a real conscious decision? And how have you navigated that? Like, I've got 2 girls, so I don't know, you do 3 girls and you're running a company. Yeah, how do you navigate that space?
Yeah, firstly, I find it really hard and challenging. Like, I'm exhausted often. It's just a driven commitment to want to do it. I think you put it well that I saw a side of it growing up, and I was attracted to that side. I actually looked up to my dad, and because he wasn't there as much, probably attracted me even more to that's what I've got to do. I think that's the attitude that I've come into adulthood with. I've got to do that. That's just my destiny in life. That's just what I've got to do. But yeah, there's definitely a changing generation of what's expected. So yeah, I've just committed to doing it. I work really hard at it because it's not something that's easy.
And early on, when our kids were still really little, Mark was working 6 days, so it was a Monday to Saturday gig. But it put pressure on our family, and we had to communicate around how that was affecting our personal life. And we made a conscious decision that he was going to progressively reduce Saturday work. And so he now doesn't work Saturday. I mean, there's the occasion, it's the building industry. So we've got a handover and he's got to go and work a Saturday, correct. But doesn't, so it's now, we've got our weekends back.
What's that like as a family?
Oh, it's great. It's
Yeah.
the best, yeah.
And the girls do sport now on weekends and stuff like that. So I guess there's that driver as well to not want to miss those years.
Definitely. What kind of sideline parents are you guys? Are you...
Horrible. He's the coach.
Okay.
So, because he has to be the leader, so he has to be the one that can actually make the calls.
Yeah.
And I'm just the psycho tiger mum on the sidelines.
We're not horrible.
We're nicely energetic.
We're enthusiastic.
Yeah. We're a controlled form of do this really well and try and win. But we, because we're from sporting backgrounds and business people, we get leadership and we understand that you don't win every single time. So what's the alternative to that? Try to win every single time.
I'm keen to dive more into that because you mentioned earlier that you didn't go straight from school into a trade. You went from school into professional sport. And definitely I agree, there's definitely some overlap there between professional sport and business. What was it like going into the professional sport and how did the opportunity come about?
I mean, I was a kid at school who I loved sport. It was my life. I liked school and I was okay at school. But I was really an outdoorsy sort of kid, like probably typical boy sort of. So I didn't love sitting in the classroom. Sport was just something that I did so easily from the point of view that I wanted to be doing it. So it just wasn't hard at all. So I just sort of was attracted to AFL football and I just did it as the love of my life sort of thing. And I got, I was lucky enough to get drafted. So that took me into a profession that I loved being in, but it taught me great things. But it didn't give me an ability to do what most kids do out of school, which is sort of go and find what they're going to do. But I did find it invariably by the fact that through footy, I went to different clubs and I played for different clubs, but I also travelled around Australia a bit playing it. And I actually met Emily in Perth whilst I was living over there, which is a story for another day. Yeah, but that gave me the ability. I studied business for one while I was over there. I worked in various jobs, mostly in industries like property and building, just because they were the thing that I knew best. But it gave me a broad spectrum of what it means to own a business and run a business and do a good job at whatever you're doing. And then I was probably always going to come back to building, to Melbourne, and to this company because it's family legacy sort of thing. So I learnt a lot of different things in the different things that I did, instead of going down a linear path of what most builders these days would have done, which is their carpentry apprenticeship.
Backtracking to Perth days. So you guys met in Perth. How did you guys meet? Was it love at
Well,
first
Mark
sight?
was playing for
Okay.
East Perth in the Waffle, and so he was over there living there, and I had a job in Melbourne that required a bit of travel, and I often was travelling on my own. So if ever I knew someone interstate, I'd contact them and say, "Hey, I'm coming. Are you around? Be good to catch up." And just so happened that Mark's housemate in Perth was a friend of mine from Melbourne.
Okay.
So that was how we met.
Yeah, right.
Love at first sight.
Love at first sight.
Well, it kind of was, because we spent like a weekend. We got introduced over a weekend, and then it was we did a long distance thing for a while, and unfortunately Mark broke his leg towards the end of that season, or fortunately maybe for me, and so it meant that he was able to get out of his contract, and then I flew over. We packed up his stuff into the ute, and we did the Nullarbor home.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the Nullarbor like driving?
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was some of the best.
You've got to do
couple
it.
of weeks
Yeah.
we had.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been pretty cool to do long distance, to then go, well, yeah, let's now do this together, and then have that really intense time of,
In the car.
of driving
And it was
together.
an Ashes. It was an Ashes series at the time. So I got to listen to the cricket on the radio driving across the Nullarbor. I mean, could you think of anything more riveting? Not?
Yep. That's
So it was quite a rude awakening to our life together.
No turning back.
it's just been upwards from there.
Yeah, well, I think he realised how good a catch I was, because he was like, man, this girl can listen to the cricket on the radio.
This is I love that. And so you guys came back, and then you started working with your dad, with Graham.
Yeah.
No, not straight
I had a
Not straight
little
away?
bit of a dabble in sort of following my business course that I studied in Perth. So I worked for Vic Urban and a few other companies that in property, basically. And in that time, I was sort of getting closer and closer to what's my purpose? What do I want to do? And why do I want to do it? And I think it was always leading me back to the family business, because, as I said earlier, I grew up with it. So everything I'd learned was sort of leading me back here. And I'm the sort of person that really loves a tangible thing that I can see and touch and feel proud of at the end of. And I think that's why building houses is so beneficial to me, because all the hard work, like why do we get up in the morning and sometimes it's just so early and it's cold and it's dark on site? Why do you do that? It's because at the end of it, that's such a great reward. It's like the footy season, right? You work through all those hard games and weeks and cold months and wet games for the prize at the end, which is the premiership. Our premiership is sort of the end product
The handover.
that our clients that we get to hand over to our client. And that's like the Premiership Cup, because all that hard work is sort of worth it. And you can touch and see and feel. And I'll often be driving around the streets, on my way to kids' basketball or something. And there'll be a house we drive past. And I'll be able to think internally, wow, that was a great job, or that had its difficulties or whatever. But it actually means something that house is still standing, and it can, sort of be held as a legacy. And I can tell the kids about it and whatever else. The relationship that we have with the clients is the other, I call it a tangible thing, because you can actually see it. And it is just so important and rewarding. When people actually appreciate you for what you do and need you for what you do, they need your skills, they need you to put up their house, and you know how to do it. That's a really good feeling. So that's something I think I thrive on, and I say to myself, well, yeah, I'll get up in the morning because it means more than just a job. Like a client said the other day of a current job, he just made comment about the fact that Emily and I care. And it really resonated with me to think, yeah, well, perhaps others don't care as much. And I think that's what our purpose is, that we actually get involved, and it means more than just a house or a job or a business to us.
That's cool, because like what, Emily, maybe from your side, to add to that, what is it like? Just hearing that is really, really amazing, because the building is just, like, in some ways part of it, but the legacy and the purpose and the relationships you have with your clients, I feel like that's the blood of this.
But it's that whole rat race thing, right? Like I've had a corporate marketing job, and Mark's been in a sales, role, and you go into work and you've got targets you've got to reach, and you're just a number to this big company, and your boss's boss doesn't know who you are, and so you get up, you sit on the train, you go and you sit in your little office, you've got some mates, but really you don't know who the clients are because sometimes you're cold calling them, and it's just, we just couldn't do it. It's sucked the life out of us, It's this. I mean, I had a nervous breakdown at my job essentially, and had to take sick leave. I just couldn't live that life, and there's no gratitude from working, because you've got to get
very
this,
hard
you've
to
got
find
this
purpose in that,
right? You've got this deadline, and so you're working these ridiculous hours till all hours of the night, and there's no thanks, there's no pat on the back, there's just no.
Just send it and then...
Yeah, and we're just not that kind of people.
Yeah, and so what we get to create, I suppose, in the DNA that you talked about and the culture, is we get to create that within our team. So we've got, what have we got? 8 of us at the moment. Our team's made up of 8, including us. So we get to create that culture with how we want it to be. So what is our culture? It's family values, it's integrity, it's trust, it's honesty, it's doing the right thing. We have a quote that we learn off a mentor, that you can't go wrong doing the right thing. And in building, it's so true, because things go wrong all the time, and we're not the perfect builder. We never profess to be. But what we will always do is we'll never walk away. We'll go back and we'll fix the things that we've fallen down in. And we can actually drive that within our team. So the people that we employ are just a makeup of us, really, an extension of what we value and the way we do things. So we've got a great team at the moment, which gives us so much confidence in going into the next 1, 2, 3 years of building, of which there's enough work to do. We've just got to do it really well. And we've got a team that holds the same values as us. We can do it really well.
Wow. What does that mean to wake up and know you've got purpose, to know you're surrounded with people that you've hand selected, that share your values and share your moral compass?
I mean, life's hard enough, right? As we said, we've got three girls, and then you're juggling all their issues as they get older, and they're being bullied at school or whatever's going on, and the last thing you then need is to think, now I've got to get into work and I've got to deal with that. So it's work-life balance, right? It allows us to have balance, and it allows us to be happy and just to get up every day and face the day, instead of just that dread. Mark will often say, when we get home from a holiday, we've just had school holidays, so we've been away, and we get home and Mark says, and I think you say it almost every holidays now, it's so nice to come home from a holiday and think, cool, I've got work next week, I've got work tomorrow, Whereas when you had that, that office job and you're just that number, you go and you bet, you're just desperate for that holiday to come. And then you get home from your holiday.
Sunday about 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
I've got to think about work now.
Yeah, and it's like this dread, and it's like, I just wish I had another week of holiday. So that's what it means. It means that we don't have that. We're able to have this just...
Totally. Do you find that, that resonates with us? Like when we do, because we take more time, like the construction space, over Christmas, and then just because we're also family orientated within the business, we're always chatting on the holidays. We're catching up, and it's like after 2 weeks, we're like, all right,
Ready?
let's start talking. Let's just catch up. Let's just coffee, and then coffee turns to talking business. And
Yeah.
Do you find in terms of that, just loving what you guys do and having the purpose in it, and where you stand in terms of that moral compass? I would imagine, but I'm keen to hear from you guys, that you find a lot of relatability then with the clients you work with when it comes to family orientation. And
Yeah, we've worked on that though. Like we'd be lying if we said we had a great relationship with every client. I mean, we get there's absolute rippers out there, isn't there? Like nightmare stuff.
Yeah, that's the human race.
Right? And you have to learn from that. And even we can do our research so we build a lot of so we specialise in jewel locks, right? So we build often for developers. So we'll call around some of the real estate agents and say, do you know this developer? Have you dealt with them before? And like you can do due diligence to some extent. Yeah. And they're always your best mate when they want you to price their project and that sort of thing. But so no, we haven't always got that wonderful relationship, but we've learnt from those bad relationships. And I suppose to talk business now, not so personal, something that we learnt was there's sort of this general consensus that builders will just work for free for you. We'll ask them to price the job. They'll spend 40 hours.
The cost of material, right?
Right, yeah. But they'll price that. How long does it take you to price a job? You'll price it for us. I mean, it could take 40 hours plus. Oh, you do that for free, right? And then, but they're pricing you against other bills. So you've just literally worked for free for 40 hours. And we changed our tune on that a bit and just said we don't hard tender anymore. Okay. We're just not going to be bastardised against other. And we were losing jobs by like less than 10K.
Oh,
on $2 million jobs.
Right?
And I was getting home late, having had to price. And everyone's like, well, what's this? Did you win the job? Oh, no. Well, what's the point of this? I'm missing my kids growing up for this. Something's got to change.
Yeah. And that client doesn't care about us. Yeah. They don't care about a relationship with their builder. And we realised that pretty quickly, I think. And we sort of thought, well, okay, we'll just say no. Yeah. So Mark put together a bit of a process where he can spend 2 to 3 hours looking at a job, doing a bit of a square metre takeoff and saying to the client, we're not going to price the job for you, but this is about a window of what your price bracket will be. And then they'd go and price it against other builders, right? And then they'd come back to us and say, oh, you were right, and we liked the way you spoke to us and you dealt with us, so we'd like you to be our builder. And we'd say, great, well, we charge to price your job, so we're going to charge you a fee. Over the years, it's varied. So I think we started at 5,000, and it was a process of it's 5,000, and then if you sign a building contract with us, we'll credit that back to the building contract. We've since increased that to $10,000, and we don't credit it back because it's still our time.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
But what that has done is it's given us an ability to qualify our clients. Do they respect us as their builder, or do they just want a builder who's going to be the cheapest builder?
Well, like you say, it's so important that the relationship, like what some people might not realise is going that route prioritises the relationship. It shows mutual respect.
Correct.
And it means that when we work together, this is going to be a really good partnership because we've set the terms as respectful towards one another.
Well, and I think there's still a perception of the builder as just a tradie, and there's still, and even like just a tradie. I mean, tradies these days are real switched on. They run really good businesses. They make good money now because they've worked out, no, I've got a qualification here. Lawyers charge, doctors charge, well, we should too. Yeah. So there's been a real shift in, I think, the way some people are starting to view the professionals in the industry, and it does set that tone of, no, I'm a professional, we're professionals, we're a professional business, so you should treat us like that. And if you're going to treat us like that, you need to pay for our time.
But also, when someone pays for your time, it allows you guys at the market, if you're pricing it, to really give it your all. Because it's like, well, I know that they've come with some skin in the game. I can give it all the attention and some that it needs, which means they're going to get a better upfront guidance, just assessment of their project.
Definitely, and I'm drawing on all my experience, all the trades surrounding us, of which we have great relationships with. So, we really actually, our business relies on our relationship with trades. So they input into that.
That's another thing I think a lot of people who don't spend time in this space don't understand how important that is. For you to give me that document, for me to trust that document you spent all the time in, I need to trust that you have these amazing relationships, because you're going to have to call on them to deliver that.
Yeah. And I haven't built them, well, we haven't built them over a year. Yeah. This company's been going for 36 years. And you can't buy that. You can't buy 36 years in a shorter time. It's 36 years. So we rely on the trades, and they give to us, we give to them, and the client, I think, benefits from that at the end of the day anyway. There's a lot of time that goes in that is unaccounted for. And this is the client's, it's a throwaway line, but it's really most likely their biggest investment that they're ever going to make. It really is. They're spending a lot of money, and we see the value to them, but we see the importance of it to them, and we don't treat that with disrespect. We've been there, we've done it ourselves. Our first little thing that we did for ourselves was a renovation in Richmond, of which we lived in that house. We built our current house from scratch. We've developed land and homes. We see it from a husband and wife perspective as well. And a lot of our clients are husband and wife. So I think
you're really drawing on a very wide array of experience, right from business, client interaction, doing it yourself, personal, family.
Yep, and we lead that. To build a house, I think over 10 or 12 months or whatever it's going to take, I think it's a really big deal. You're not sitting at a desk with everything perfect, lighting and heating and cooling and everything. We're on site really early. It's dark at the start. It's cold, it's wet, it's windy, it's raining, but then it's sunny and it's too hot and everyone wants to go home because it's over 35 or whatever it is. That's not an easy environment to build in. Coupled with that is the fact that you've got all these human beings making this product with their hands. So we're not in a factory or a controlled environment producing this. We are out there reading plans, interpreting what the client wants for a budget, and everyone's coming to the site every day to make it happen. Now, what are they bringing to the site? Human beings are complex, and they've got all sorts of problems. They had a fight with their wife. Are their kids going okay at school? Financially, how are they doing personally? So they're bringing all that. So we think we're good at harnessing and controlling that and getting the best out of people to produce the result. It's not easy.
When you talk like that, it makes so much sense as to why it is so important to prioritize relationship with the builder. It seems almost silly. Like if someone's going to, let's say these guys are doing their developments or these projects with you, if they were to go and invest in the stock market, you would hope that they would do a significant research into which stock to pick and the company and that. So why are you deciding on a builder based on price versus, what's their history? What have they done? Where they come from? What are their morals? Where do they stand on things? How do they run? What's their processes? Listening and reading some of Warren Buffett stuff or Charlie Munger stuff, they will not make an investment for years and just research and watch, and then they go all in. Yeah. And it's like, you can't argue with what those guys have achieved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
relationships, I would have to say, is almost our number one advantage, maybe, would be the best way to term it. We used to do a lot of, this business has gone through a lot of, so we're in our 36th, let's say, year. That's, fourth decade, right? Our first decade of the business, the company was set up by my mum and dad. My dad was an engineer who ran his engineering business, but he had a building business called Cellstruct on the side. So for the first decade, Cellstruct was a builder that got a big job and did it, but then didn't follow up and get continual work. So maybe became a bit of a maintenance type contractor. So it was sort of up and down and whatnot. No one was controlling it. Our second decade was more around, it was sort of an unofficial motto of there's a job to build, we're a builder, let's do it. And that came from my dad more so than anything. He was a smart man. He was a good engineer, like the best engineer. His brain needed constant stimulus of give me another challenge. And that was great for him, but it wasn't great for the business because we found ourselves working in residential, commercial, industrial, civil, educational, marine, which gave us a great experience of everything, but it wasn't in our opinion a good business model. So that second decade was sort of that. The third decade was a bit more, okay, let's get the business going in our direction. Instead of being a jack of all trades, let's be a jack of all trades, master of none. Let's stand for something. Let's be known for something. Let's be the builder that people talk about. Oh, you've got to build with Cellstruct. They're so good.
But it was at that point you came into the business.
That was when I came into the business, and we focused on the residential market.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection of what happened in you coming into the business was Graham talking to you, I don't know whether it was over a Sunday roast or whatever, but saying, I think I'm going to employ a business manager to come in and get things in order. And you sort of said, well, that's me.
Dad.
And so you came into the business, and there were two businesses operating at the time. There was Ainley Engineering Projects and Cellstruct. And as Mark said, Cellstruct was sort of just a bit of an offshoot because he was an engineer. So that was his primary focus. And when you came in, you were focusing on AP, weren't you?
A little bit of both.
And then you sort of started to realise Cellstruct was actually what you were enjoying because it's the building element. And so then you shifted your focus onto Cellstruct and started building that up through all the council work and industrial stuff. And so that was sort of that transition. And then slowly the engineering became less and less and Cellstruct got bigger and bigger. And
yeah. So the focus on residential really became, we can build a business around this. And I remember a key milestone was when we actually, it was sort of we'd had a bit of dabbling in the property and developing a bit before this, but this was our first major job site in Cheltenham. We bought the land and we built 5 units on it. And I remember it was a time where, it was probably where we connected most to say, hey, this is something we can do together and actually develop something that's going to be a long-term thing. I remember I think Emily came in and thought, yep, Emily's great at her design and her interior stuff. So she saw, as that project went on, she saw a need for it and did it. It just sort of happened organically. I was building it.
Huge value project.
Huge value. And it was a great husband and wife sort of team and opportunity. So we sort of did it on that job. And that was probably a key lesson and learning in, hey, let's go and do this. So from there, I suppose our fourth decade has been a bit more about refining what we're doing. But it all sort of came from that job where we sort of said, hey, this is something we can do together. And I bring that, I bring the history of Cellstruct up because we're talking about relationships. We were doing so much commercial work for councils and stuff. And in commercial work, I mean, every part of the industry is budget and finance related. We get that. But council work that we were doing was just so price driven. Yeah. They wanted this and the budget was here. And this is what we just struggled with because we were ripping the guts out of the trades prices. I was scrolling the internet trying to find as many as I could because it was a law of averages, right? If I find 10, one of them will be able to do it for the price that we can make this project work. And that didn't sit well with us. I hated that. So we said, well, let's go and build. It was residential, but whether it was commercial or residential, it actually didn't matter. Let's go and build something that we can be proud of, we can do properly, we can pay people properly to get the result that everyone wants. Yeah. Commercial didn't allow it and residential did.
Because also, what happens when you're choosing the cheapest trade? Well, the quality's shit. Yeah. So what happens when you've got quality? You end up with defects. So then
And then the relationship's not there, so you can't go.
and council don't care.
Yeah,
They just
there's
want
no
you to go fix the
accountability.
defects, and then you can't get the trade to go back because you paid him peanuts, and he's not going to go back and fix it. That's what you paid for.
Yeah.
And I remember Mark coming home and just always being tense and tight, and because he'd had some argument on site, and it's just.
Well, it's a churn and burn, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a problem, there's a defect. Well, that tray's not going to come back because it was on a tight budget, and it's a churn and burn, and there's no relationship.
So that was a real defining moment for you guys to go, we're going
Because the
resi.
client suffers from that.
And yeah, that's true. At the end of the day, what outcome is the client going to get?
And that was hard for Graham, we call him G, because we sort of had this vision for the business that we were going to become specialists, which, we both got business backgrounds. So for us, you study at uni and it's all about becoming a specialist and finding your niche. And whereas he's that old school mentality, no, you do everything.
Yeah,
you just take whatever job because, you never know when the next job's coming. And whereas we were trying to be a lot more strategic. And that was hard for him to understand. And even when we said, we want to be dual lock specialists. Oh, no, you can't do that. I mean, you can't find enough jobs where there's just dual locks. You've still got to do a bit of this and a bit of that. And,
Yeah. So in terms of the, how this business started, well, it started ages ago by my mum and dad. So we're second generation. This is second generation. And I mean, we'll always be so appreciative of the opportunity that we've been given, because building businesses are really, really, really hard to start. So we will never forget that opportunity. But it wasn't easy I'll call it the succession period, which was in that third decade. The succession wasn't easy because of Graham and how much he held on to his work as his life, and the way all things had always been done, and he knew how to do it. And he was a really smart man, but in a business sense, he was a good businessman, but he probably didn't focus on the basics enough, getting the foundations right from the start. I've lost my train of thought there. So the succession wasn't an easy thing for us. It was actually really hard to make it was particularly at the time what I wanted to do. That didn't come easy. And then when it did come, we weren't given a business which was financially secure, had processes in place, had client bases, had marketing set up. We had to set up all of that from scratch. And that was challenging, and it didn't go perfectly, and we learnt the lessons along the way. We had really bad jobs, we had really bad clients. But the one thing that I'd say, another key lesson and milestone, is we learnt from the mistakes that we made, which all builders make. I don't care what anyone says, they happen. And we learnt, but not only learnt, we acted on the learnings. So I think, clients can be confident that every single time we do a job, we've learned from it and we'll be better next time.
Yeah, that's something. Just in today's conversation, I do keep seeing that pattern of just like constant refinement. Like refining never stops, and I can't imagine the DNA of 36 years of refinement. It would just be unbelievable. Looking at where you guys are today, and let's look at the last sort of decade and a half, or this fourth decade you guys are in. Niching and specializing in dual lock. What does it mean from a client's perspective to work with someone who specializes in that specifically and has experience in specializing in that?
Yeah, well, they can be so confident with our knowledge and experience because we've been there and we've done it. And we're a mum and dad. We get what families need, particularly Emily with the design. So, a period of time, 5 or so years ago, we not only started charging for our quoting, but we started to design, construct, because we were seeing so we would build the house, but we were seeing so many gaps in the design of it, the functionality, dealing with real estates, trying to sell the end product, and having a floor plan issue. So Emily, as the lead designer or interior designer, sees those problems, learns from them. So the next time we go to design, she's involved more. The end product for the client is a better sell. Because people see the floor plan and say, yes, that's what we need. So we bring the experience and knowledge of what we've learned into that, and the design taking over the design as well as the construction has been a big part of that. So clients can just be confident that we know what we're doing and we do it in real. I think we're real. We're real people. We have real lives. We have our problems, and that's the warts and all sort of version of it. So we'll pass those learnings on to the client to consistently get better and better.
What's it like from a design? Because that's not all builders do that. You know, from like bringing your expertise in, Emily, in terms of making the right choices so that what is built is designed right, which means it's lived in. From what I've learned a little bit, you know, is then you're living in a home that's functional, comfortable, or let's say it's for sale, it's highly sellable, and highly attractive.
And I think this is the whole, you know, being able to sleep at night thing. Like, we don't design and construct all of our projects. It's definitely our preference, and certainly the consumers are a lot more savvy in understanding we need to get the builder's input at the start, not once we've got a set of plans. But you know, like, so we'll get a set of plans from an architect, and there would be, I reckon, probably 8 out of 10 builders that'll go, yep, no worries, let's get it built.
Yeah.
Whereas there's probably those other 2 builders, us being one of them, that go, oh, I can't let this slide. Like, you're going to lose money on. You're not going to be able to sell that, and if you do sell it, you're going to have to be. You know, you're going to lose on it because it's not a functional.
It's missing
home.
a lot.
Yeah. And in this area, we've done a lot of our own private developments as well, so we know, and we can say, no, you're not going to be able to sell it. Doesn't have a walk-in pantry.
Yep.
You need to have a walk-in pantry. You must have you've got to have a bedroom downstairs. You've got to have a bedroom upstairs, and that will vary from suburb to suburb and area to area. But we know this area, so not. And that whole sleep at night thing is we just couldn't let that slide, which often's to the detriment of ourselves and our business, because instead of being able to start the job straight away, we then go back to redesign, and then we might have to do a submission to council, and so 3 months later we've lost that cash flow where we could have just had that job. But that's just our philosophy. We just got to do the right thing by our client, and I think that goes a long way as well when you get those referrals and things that come through, and people say, oh, you just got to trust them.
Yeah, we do more than what I would say the average builder does. For example, a lot of our clients are mum and dad own their land and have for a while, so they've got equity in the land.
Okay.
Kids might have moved out. They subdivide it, sell one, and live in a new house on the other side. So they've sort of paid off a new house, which suits them. But stuff like they need to sell that other side of the house. So they're trying to sell it off the plan as we build. So they've got real estate agents calling me saying, I need to get in, I've got a potential client, can I come in? Some builders, I assume, say, nah, building, construction site, not interested. We go out of our way to try to help our client get the best result for them, which means walking people through the site. Sometimes we walk through with potentials, but more often than not, the real estate agent will just be allowed to come in controlled. So I'll be there, I'll be walking through. We've even built stairs in a situation just so this real estate agent and client can walk through. And look, it's a minor thing, but I think it's what we stand for. We'll do the right thing by the client, by our client.
One thing I really liked hearing that is the abundance of experience you guys have means you're coming with the eyes and the appreciation for the final outcome. So, like, that's amazing. Understanding that, selling this the right time, in the right manner, all of that is so important to the client, and you care because of the relationship you have. So then you are making controlled allowances for walkthroughs and stuff. That's amazing.
But don't you think
That's
that
incredible
comes
value.
very naturally to us? Like we don't. I mean, it's probably to our detriment at times.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It's time and it's sometimes money, and it's. I would like to think that you can't go wrong doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I would like to think that comes back around, whether it's word of mouth, referrals from clients who say, yeah, look, that you've got to build with Cellstruct because they actually care. And I mentioned it before about the client who said, you and Emily care. We care, and we just do stuff like that to help people.
And then there's the other side where we actually take on more, especially in a subdivision. There's so many different processes you have to go through with council and getting new titles and all the authorities, new gas meters, all those sorts of things. We do all of that for the client. So we fill all the applications in, we submit, we get them to sign it. They pay it directly, so we'll just send it through for them to pay. But we do that almost a little bit from a selfish perspective too, because when we previously used to leave that in the client's hands, it wouldn't get done.
Yeah. Well,
So then
it's amazing.
Right. So then it'd affect our schedules, and then it was like, you really good. So then it was like, no, we're just going to do it for them.
Do you remember that we were trying to sell a property of ours?
Yeah.
And we still had the temporary pole.
Because when we were still learning, we were getting it wrong too.
We had the
and
temporary
we know
pole up,
stuff, right?
and we were going to auction that Saturday, and it
we
was
had no
still up
power.
on Tuesday. And I was just at the power company just trying to
We
get
need
this
lights
thing down.
on for the auction. We need lights on for the auction.
It's a really basic example and half mistake, but we actually needed the power to continue to build, but we needed to sell it. So we never forget those things and try and always avoid that for the client so that they don't go through the same mistakes that we've been through before. I think, you go.
Mark said it earlier. It's potentially the biggest investment in a family's life. That's a big deal, and we don't take that lightly. Like they're entrusting us to essentially we put fences up. You're not allowed on your property anymore. It's our site, right? It's a really big thing, and as family people and people who have gone through it before, like we've built our own house now a couple of times. We know that it's stressful, it's scary, financially it's petrifying. Yeah. So if we can let the client understand that we get it, I think that goes a long way.
Really get it.
Yeah,
we really get
granted,
it.
do
And we don't take it for granted.
You know, we're not flippant in understanding that we've got to be on, like we've got an important job to do to succeed for our clients. We can't come in here after a big weekend and, not on our game. We have to be on our game. That's how seriously we treat it.
And sadly, there are still some real cowboy builders out there, and that's frightening too. And that just affects the whole industry because then everyone thinks everyone's a cowboy.
With hearing this, your ability to now have these refined lenses with which you look at how to do things, you look at the market. What is that? What is the opportunity that you are seeing out there in terms of that excites you for the future, for your clients, for the future of Cellstruct?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of work to still be built. I know people are finding finance difficult at the moment, but as I said before, we are pretty specialist in this area, particularly in developments, dual occupancies. There's a lot of people out there who want to develop their land for whatever personal reason they have. We see an opportunity in bringing the experience and the knowledge to help them see their goals into the future with their land. This industry's gone through a hell of a lot, particularly since COVID around 2020. We have ridden the ups and downs of that period of time, and we've learnt a heap from it. We're stable and we're solid with our good foundations. So I think we'll just continue to do what we're doing, refine as we go, and bring the experience and knowledge to help our clients. So I think our future is doing what we're doing, just doing it better and better every single day, every single job.
Love that.
And I think with the last couple of years where so many builders are going broke, the customer's getting smarter. They're really appreciating the value of a builder more. And that's exciting for me because I think the more the more the public start to realise builders aren't cowboys. Builders are really good professional businesses these days. And it's not about the cheapest quote. It's about working with someone that you can build a relationship with and trust. It becomes more enjoyable for everyone, especially the builder, because it's not this tit for tat or this lack of trust or driving past the site every day just to check on the builder or, I think that the more we can become a professional industry, the more the customer starts to realise they're paying for a service that's a really big deal, and then they've got to be a bit smarter about that. So I think that that's a really exciting place that the industry's going, given what's happened over the past couple of years. People are becoming more appreciative.
I love that. Yeah. Guys, thank you very, very much. I feel like that was amazing, but there's so much more I'd love to ask you to do. I think the next time you guys will have to come up to the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And we'll do episode 2 there.
Yeah,
No,
sounds
thank
good.
You. Thank you.